Hello and welcome to Content Management. My name is Eddie. I'm going to be your substitute trainer for a couple of chapters here. Your main trainer is going to be Brandon. He is the one who typically does content management, but I'm kind of filling in for the first couple of chapters here. So if this is your first time here, I want to welcome you. And if this is another course that you've taken, then I want to welcome you back. It's good to see you again. Let's go ahead and dive in here. We're going to be talking about engaging users with content. Now, this course has the assumption that you've taken the fundamentals course. Now, we know what happens when you assume, so no one wants to be the tail end of a joke here. So I'm going to be talking as if you have not taken the fundamentals course, but sometimes I may use terms that come from the fundamentals course. So just as a heads up, I'm going to try to do my best here. So first and foremost, we're talking about content. Now, content can be expressed in a lot of different ways. It could be plain text, it could be images, PDFs, GIFs, and so on, and any combination of a lot of different things. And so with Liferay DXP, we talked about in the fundamentals course how a lot of what we're trying to do is user-driven, right? We're trying to provide a specific type of experience or a specific type of service to our end users, whether it's customers, employees, or anything in between. And so one of the primary ways that we want to be able to do that is through content. So when we're dealing with content in Liferay, it's pretty simple to create it. It's pretty simple to manage it for the most part. When we're dealing with content, we can create sites. These sites contain pages. Now these pages will have content on them, and these types of pages can be expressing a lot of different things. It could be your main front page. www.liferay.com takes you to the front page of Liferay. You'll see a bunch of content there. Maybe a landing page is another example, right? You sign in using some sort of authentication mechanism, and then you're sent off to a specific page. Right? It can even be tailored to what type of user you are. So landing page, front page, or an express content page, right? Just trying to get content up in your face really quick, really easily, depending on a lot of different types of use cases. One of them could be like what we do at university.liferay.com, right? Getting quick content there to be able to convey or display our courses. All of that to say, a lot of different ways you can use content to express whatever it is that your company or organization is trying to express through content. So we touched on this a little bit. Let's dive back in. Now back over again in the fundamentals course, we talked about how sites are a place that we can store content. Now, if we leave it at that, it's just that. It's just a repository for content. Now, the question would come up, what's the difference between a Liferay site and something like Dropbox or Google Drive, where those two can also store content and files? Well, this diagram over here kind of gives us the whole picture. Within the site, we can store content. Now, if we want to display the content, there's a couple ways that we can do this. Primarily, the way that we're going to be doing this is through pages. So within a site, you can create a page, and then on that page, you can then display content through what we used to call portlets or applications, or what we call widgets now. So a site contains content. We create a page. If we want to display the content on the page, one of the ways that we can do that is through these things called widgets. The widget is like the window or the way that we can peek into or see content. So each site is its own sort of repository for content. So one site can have a whole bunch of content. Another site can have a whole bunch of content, and generally speaking, they stand independent of one another. They don't really have any interaction. Site 1, Site 2, both have content. Both are more or less standalone with a couple different exceptions there. So site, page, content. Site contains the content. If we want to display the content, we'll create a page and then display the content through that page. Now, when we're dealing with content, back in the fundamentals course, once again, we talked about these things called assets. Now, in Liferay, we have this thing called the asset framework. The asset framework is how we've traditionally dealt with content in the past and still today. But over here in Liferay 7.1, we also have a couple of really cool, really nifty tools that helps us with the creation of content as well. So if you haven't taken the fundamentals course, let's go ahead and dive into some of the topics. All right, so before we dive into all of our different topics and definitions and whatnot, we first need to set up Liferay. Now there's two different ways that we can go through the setup process. One of them is in the cloud using Liferay's WeDeploy. WeDeploy deploys Liferay DXP, right? You can use your browser to access Liferay. Very simple, very straightforward. We have some instructions there. Once we have that set up, we're going to log into Liferay, complete the setup wizard, install our exercise files, and then add a theme to make Liferay look a little bit better. Now, the WeDeploy option is temporary. You only got a limited amount of time that you can actually work with your Liferay instance. An alternative is installing Liferay locally. Now, this is typically what we do in our trainings, right? You're going to have it on your own machine. So depending on your situation, you may want to take one route over the other. Brandon's going to walk you through that process, but let's go ahead and we'll push on here with the content that we have in store. So once we install locally, there's still a couple of other things that we need to do. Once it's installed, we need to then deploy an activation key. Once we activate Liferay, from there, we'll go through the setup wizard, just as we would have done in the WeDeploy option, and then deploy our theme and make sure we have our exercise files all ready to go. So again, Brandon's going to take you through that process, right? So feel free to follow him through that, but let's go ahead and push on with a couple of other ideas and concepts along the way. Before we do, let's summarize a couple of things that we have discussed here. So just going through each one of these bullet points, emphasizing that little gray area. So Liferay provides a content management tool, or a couple of different tools, to be able to create content for your business and your business use case. So we talked about how each specific site is used to contain, store, or group content. So each site is its own sort of repository for content. So site pages are the part of the site where content is actually displayed, right? The site itself is the container for the content, but if we want to see the content, right, one of the ways that we can do that is through our widgets. It's like a window to be able to look into our content. And the content is managed within Liferay, or it follows what we call the asset framework. The asset framework does provide us a number of different features that are common amongst all of the different content types within Liferay. So these are some of the big key concepts that we reviewed or that we've talked about in this part. Right, let's go ahead and we'll walk through the installation of Liferay.